All right, welcome everyone to another round of the Mere Mortals Conversations. Number 69. Welcome, Oscar. You've hit the meme number, the funniest number of all. It's Oscar Merry from Fountain, the Fountain FM app.
Hey, Kyrin, great to be here.
Yeah, no worries, man. I was going to keep this just a casual one. So I sort of usually, if I have someone on for the first time, I go for like the deep dive, and then after that, if we chat again, I'm usually I take it a lot more lighter. Just bring up whatever. So yeah, great to have you on again, man. I have a burning question for you. What is harder when you're designing your app? Is it the Bitcoin stuff, getting that in, or is it the actual podcasting, audio sort of things?
Great question. I think they're difficult in different ways. I think the way we think about it is the podcasting function of the app has to come first, because fundamentally, um, what do you do with the Fountain app? You listen to podcasts, and if that experience isn't good, then all the bells and whistles of whether it's Bitcoin payments or anything else that we do that differentiates us is not really going to matter. So they're equally difficult, but I would say the podcast listening experience is more important because it just is the fundamental purpose of the app. So we've actually been spending a lot of time over the past month, just improving that. We've got a big release coming next week, which has loads of improvements to the core listening experience. I think more long term, I think the challenges around the UX of onboarding people to Bitcoin and Lightning within Fountain will become more strategically important for us. But in the short term, it's all about the listener experience. How slick does it feel to, download Fountain, import your podcast for the first time, search for shows, listen to shows, manage your downloads, manage your episodes and show lists, everything like that. Smart audio features as well is something that we've got in the pipeline as well. So yeah, the podcast listening experience is the most important.
Yeah, for sure. I've definitely noticed, just scrolling around on Twitter and other places that, obviously the Bitcoiners are the ones who are really interested in that part of the app as well. What portion of people do you think don't even know about it, use the Fountain app, but have no idea that you can do all these, Bitcoin related things in it?
Yeah, I think it's quite a high portion actually. I think the clipping is the other differentiator that it will cause people to download Fountain and try us out compared to existing podcast app. So there's a bunch of people that use Fountain for the clipping, but definitely the Bitcoin payments is the thing that is getting people really excited, because yeah, it is really exciting. It's really cool to be able to pay podcasters as you listen.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've definitely been noticing that with myself, which is the people who I really know, because I really like boostergramming. That's honestly like that's what drew me into podcasting 2.0 in the first place. Like that first time I got a boost from, it was probably from Dave on the show saying like, hey, congrats, you made it, sort of thing. And then subsequent other ones from just random people was just really, really nice feedback. Like, I've had feedback from other listeners and whatnot, but there's something really special about it. And so then trying to spread that joy to other people, it's kind of hard because I really hate boostergramming, like sending a message and it just going nowhere. That's like one of the biggest sticking points for me. I was actually wondering, do you think there'll be a point where it'll sort of almost be like a social media type app where, WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger or any of these, you send the message and then you sort of, as the user, as the sender, you get a confirmation that A, it's arrived, and then B, that they've actually seen it? Because that, I feel, is like one of the real sticking points for me at the moment, which is, and I'm deep into the, I'm deep into this, but do you see that sort of functionality ever being built in?
100%, yeah. And you're right. One of the biggest problems right now is there are a lot of podcasters that have set up to receive the Bitcoin Lightning payments, but are not able to read the messages, especially in the Bitcoin space, because a lot of Bitcoiners will be running their own node, and the actual Bitcoin Lightning node software doesn't read the boost messages out of the box. So a lot of the Bitcoin podcasters that are actually some of the top supported shows on Fountain, that all they see is they see the payments coming in regularly, and they know that it's their listeners supporting them on Podcasting 2.0 apps, but they don't see the messages. And it's 100% the biggest problem. We're actually we're working on something that's going to make this much, much easier for podcasters in terms of actually being able to see the messages. And I do think, to answer your question, I do think the interactions will become much more social in the future. So I think the ability for a podcaster to reply, for example, would be really, really cool. It's something we're thinking about. And also, optionally, whether it's I think the listener needs to have control of this, but the ability to actually view all of the boost messages for a particular episode or even a particular show, because I think part of the fun of the boost messages is actually seeing what other people have said. It's fun to hear the host of a podcast read out the messages from other users as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we'll get there eventually.
Yeah, that's a big one as well, because once again, another couple of things. I remember Adam said on like an episode of Podcasting 2.0, he was going to register diapernode.com or something like that. And it was, a real obscure joke and I was sort of catching up on episodes. And so I laughed and I actually checked, and he actually obviously did register it afterwards because it redirected back to the podcast index. And I thought that was the funniest thing out. So I sent him a message, but he'd said that probably 3 months prior. And so he just receives this random message being like, I've something diaper node, like what the hell is that? I have no idea what that is. So yeah, definitely I can see that one as a big sort of sticking point as well. Do you think you're going to become like if you're introducing like these messages going back and forth, you'll be like the next big social media app? It'll be a Fountain taking over Facebook and
I don't think so, because I think one of the things that we don't think it's necessary to do is, for example, with the clips on Fountain, when you create and share a clip, people that follow you on Fountain will be able to see that clip in Fountain and listen to it as part of their, daily playlist, which is in our view, a better way to listen, because you can have speed controls. You can click through to the episode if you want to. So, in that sense, we have social features within Fountain. But really, where people get a lot of traction with clips is sharing them outside of Fountain, mainly as videos on, for example, Twitter. And so I don't think we want to limit that behavior. And actually, I think that behavior is great. The ability to take content from Fountain and share it in a place where you're already having the conversations with the people that you follow and the people you're interested in. We don't need to replace that necessarily in Fountain. We just need to make it really easy for that to happen. So I don't think we're looking to, take all of the conversations that are happening around podcasts and make sure they're happening within Fountain. We just want to make it really easy to actually start those conversations wherever they be.
Yeah. You've probably been watching, I guess, like the meta stuff going on, as in the behavior of people sending boostergramming. You've got all the stats in your app. Are you noticing any like different behaviors of people popping up when they're sending messages versus, how they would behave on perhaps just take Twitter, for example, or another social media app? Are they, sending messages in a different way, perhaps?
Yeah, good question. I haven't dug into the data too much, to be honest, but I think one interesting thing, two interesting things that I've been thinking about. Number one, I think it was James Cridland that first mentioned this, but I think generally the messages are all very positive, which is interesting. Obviously, there's a lot of there's a lot of animosity on Twitter, for example, whereas the far majority of the boost messages that we see are really positive. So that's one interesting thing. I guess that's inherently tied to the fact that you have to pay to send the message. We do see some, critical ones, but that's good too. I'm not trying to eliminate that. And then the other thing is, I think both us as Fountain and podcasters that want to encourage boost messages and lightning payments need to do a better job of explaining what is a good boost message and like what's actually possible here, because we do see a lot of boost messages which are just like, thanks, great episode, and that's fine, that's really great to receive as a podcaster, but really the power of this is to actually connect with the host on a deeper level and actually start a back and forth, throw out a question, comment on the episode such that the podcaster can use that in the next episode. And that's something that we are seeing, but I think maybe it's the UI currently, or maybe it's the way that it's explained or the lack of explanation, but a lot of these especially the first messages are just quite simple. It's just like, thanks. I think the idea that these can actually be real conversations and can actually go quite deep on topics. There can be a back and forth between the podcast and the listener. I think that is still in its infancy.
Yeah, I have a feeling that stuff will just grow out on its own, to be honest. I think sort of the way they're constructed, maybe it is because of you're using it on your phone, for example, and typically on a phone you're not going to be typing out a full sentence or a paragraph of things. So like I've noticed that with myself, depending on if I'm using like a boostergram via the phone or via the laptop, it's a different way of communicating differently. So I think that one will sort of almost sort itself out in a way. I really do like the sort of anti-spam in a way. And you mentioned criticism, and it's the constructive criticism. So it's almost like, I'm still willing to pay, even if it's a tiny amount, and I'm saying negative things in a way, I guess you can put it like that. But constructive criticism is the critiquing to improve it, make it better. So there's always sort of that positivity, I guess, behind it, even if the message itself is maybe, saying that you could have done a better show, your audio is not so great, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that'd be nice to see that proliferate, I guess, just elsewhere as well. Twitter's sort of trying to do it. Facebook was doing the Libre, whatever it is, whether that actually goes through or not, but just having that ability to know, this message that I send, there's a cost to it. I think that's helpful. That's one of the things that Adam keeps talking about as well. So free is never free sort of thing. It's always got a cost attached.
100%. Yeah. And on Twitter specifically, I mean, the spam problem is so bad.
Yeah. Okay. I'm relatively new to Twitter, so I don't. I've only been in it in like, I don't know, a couple of months. So
yeah, I mean, if you look at tweets from any large account, let's say with more than 10,000 followers, and you look at the replies, the amount of spam in there, the amount of scams in there, the amount of accounts impersonating other accounts, it's actually quite shocking that it's that bad. And simply by attaching or requiring a payment with every message, even if it's a small payment, it just massively disincentivizes all of that. So I think it's really important to keep the payment requirement to any of these messages.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I read two of the books that you recommended from the last one. So one of them was in the actual podcast you mentioned, which was Nathaniel's Nutmeg, and then the other was the really long title one. Don't tell mom I work on the rigs. She thinks I'm a piano player in a whorehouse. What did you think of my interpretation of the Nathaniel's Nutmeg one? Out of interest.
Yeah, I loved the reviews that you did. I listened to both of them. The Nathaniel's Nutmeg review in particular, it made me really want to go and read the book again, because I actually haven't read it in about maybe 10 years or something.
Oh geez, yeah, quite a long time.
So yeah, definitely going to go back and read it. I think that I loved what you were saying about the window into what it must have been like for these sailors back in the 15th, the 16th century, and how they must have felt knowing that there's a 50% chance that they won't come back. Or did they not know that? Was there some kind of was it a false pitch of glory and wealth? So I really enjoyed that aspect to it. And yeah, to be honest, it just made me want to go and read the book again. So I probably will have to do that.
All right, well, that's a good outcome from the video. So for those who don't know, it's a book about the spice trade, I guess, I think it was early 1500s to mid 1600s, and it was Britain and England, the England East India Trading Company. I think they just called it East India Company, and then the Dutch East India, and that was the biggest company in history. I guess they had a net worth of what would be like 8 trillion nowadays. And yeah, thanks. It's funny, like I didn't actually know the book was about that, and I'd been meaning to actually research a bit about the Dutch East India for ages. It's just been on my to-do list. So it was sort of like a nice surprise being like, oh, okay, I'm actually learning about it.
Yeah, that's why I like those styles of books, because I think one of the other things you mentioned in the review was, a kind of hesitancy around how much of this is actually true versus just kind of narrative to make the story more exciting. But actually, I really like those books, because I think even though that some of the narrative's not true, it's a great way to get like a bit of an introduction to something incredible that happened in history, that you read the book reading it as if it were a novel, and you just read it for pleasure. But then if it like sparks your curiosity on that topic, then you can go maybe and pick up like a more dense actual history book and kind of learn more about it.
Yeah, I've tried that a bunch in the past. So I'm fascinated by history, but it just depends how it is sort of presented to me. So I remember reading some similar type of books. I think one was the Red Tsar, maybe, which was about Stalin. I think that was Simon Sebag Montefiore or something. It's like he sort of does history like that as well. Like he'll dive into the home of a Russian peasant in Stalingrad or whatever, and sort of flesh it out a little bit, but not too much as well. There's like enough mixture of facts and like straight facts of like these armies moved from this place at this time, and this happened because of that. And then I've read a couple of books of pure history, and I find that I actually don't remember them that well. So like it's definitely the narrative ones. It's a story. It just implants in your brain a little bit easier. Definitely those sorts of ones. I got fooled by the other book that you had as well that you mentioned. Just the title, like I assumed there would be something to do with like a conflict between him and his mom. There was just none in that.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask about the marketing side of things as well, because you really seem to be taking a bit of like gaining some steam with Fountain, and who's doing that, the marketing side of things? Is that you or Nick? Because I know both of you sort of work together.
Yeah, so that's Nick, my business partner, looks after all of that side, and we're trying to get the word out about podcasting 2.0, and in specifically the Bitcoin payments, because we're incredibly excited about it, but it is very new for people, and a lot of people that have not a lot of people are hesitant about when you mention Bitcoin. People go, "Oh, this is not something for me. This is an investment. This is a trading thing. This is, something, all the stories about Bitcoin, negative story headlines that you see." So I think there's a big job we have to do, just explaining that this is not necessarily about Bitcoin. This is just a really cool new way of interacting with your favorite podcast, supporting your favorite podcast. And I think it's really important that we highlight that and talk about it as much as we can. I think it's also like, it helps us a lot to actually write these things out, give examples. We actually use our clipping feature a lot as well to try and take examples from different podcasts, whether it's examples of podcasters actually asking for support or reading out a boostergram or that kind of thing. So yeah, it's really important, I think.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting, I guess, intriguing just to see it working as well. Because like I said, I've been listening to a bunch of Bitcoin podcasts and I don't hear them bring up Podfriend or Breeze. Breeze every now and then, but more for the point of sale type of things rather than the actual podcasting features. So yeah, whatever you're doing is it's definitely working, because I'm starting to notice like, oh yeah, Fountain, it's popping up a bit more. So that's really cool to see, man. With your actual app as well, what do you think it's like? What it's most lacking right now? Where do you see like the most improvements that you can add to it in like the coming year?
Oh, there's so much to improve. I think as I said before, that all of the things that are number one priority have to do with the core listening experience. So I mean, the current release that we're working on just brings a lot more control to the podcast library. So in this next release, we have a much better tagging system, which allows you to basically create custom tags and filters for both your episode feed and your show feed. So for example, right now I have I have all my episodes. I have all my downloaded episodes where I can listen offline. I have all my starred episodes, which is kind of like the default tag. Then I'll have a tag for Bitcoin content. I have a tag for podcasting content. I'll have a tag for sleep content, which is, sometimes I like listening to, quite long history podcasts, if I'm just falling asleep. So yeah, the tagging and filtering we're about to release, I think will make organizing your podcast library on Fountain much easier and much more powerful as well, like kind of like podcast power user. So that's one example. We also in the next release have automatic downloads coming. So that means you have the option to either on Wi-Fi or mobile data actually just auto download everything. And that will mean that you can play from the downloaded audio file as opposed to the streaming, because we do have some issues sometimes with network connection drops and handling those properly. So yeah, that's the next release. And yeah, I think it's just about making that core listening experience as good as possible. Some of the other things that we think are lacking are the smart audio features. So things like auto skip silences, voice boost for podcasts where the audio quality is not so great, just leveling things out and boosting the actual spoken word part. They're things that we're going to be working on as well. There's a lot more kind of very small things. They're not like big headline features or anything, but just they all add up at the end of the day, and you might not even notice them as you're using Fountain, but actually they will be causing you a bit of frustration. So yeah, there's a lot there, a lot to do still.
Yeah, for sure. Is there ever an endpoint where you think like, yeah, it's done? Will there ever, or is it going to just be a continual, like, have you just committed the rest of your life essentially to the Fountain app?
I think on the audio side, I think that there will be a point where we can probably go, okay, cool, we've delivered an amazing audio listening experience. I think, yeah, that's something we can hopefully get to soon. I think when it comes to one of the reasons we're doing this is that we believe that there's all this incredible insight locked up in podcasts, and we want to make it easier to discover and share that. So our features, like our clipping feature, our clip playlists, discovering clips and playlists, discovering fountain users that have clips and playlists, discovering clips on topics, that stuff I think probably won't ever be done, because there's always going to be ways that we can make that easier. But that's the stuff that I'm really excited about long term. Like, we had the conversation about let's take narrative history books. Like, wouldn't it be cool if you could go and find clips or playlists based on that really niche topic, and from that maybe you listen to a playlist that has 10 clips in it. Each one is a highlight from a different narrative history book, and then from that playlist you can just spend 10 minutes listening, and suddenly you've got a really good idea of, okay, which book do I want to go and buy. Like, they might be clips from Mere Mortals book reviews, might be some of the clips. There may be other book reviews podcasts in there, but by giving people the flexibility to listen to this little clips of podcast content from different sources, I think we can just create a whole new way for discovering audio content, which in turn will allow people to discover just anything. It's a way to kind of follow your curiosity without having to put as much time into it.
Yeah, I suppose as well, like the delivery of it. So funnily enough, with podcasting 2.0, I was just mentally in my mind going through a bunch of the tags, and I don't think really any of them are related to any specific audio thing. It's almost like that's locked in, and once you get it to a good enough level, there's always like little tweaks, but the main things are being able to do something live, or to be able to deliver it in a different format. That seems to be a pretty big one, i.e., like you were just saying, this app will only show history books, this one will only show music, this one will only show, I don't know, like cooking, and filtering by certain tags and things like that. So it's almost like you get the audio good, and then it's maybe even becoming something different from podcasting, because it's now got pictures for the chapter art and the video, even, I guess, with the 3Speak feeds and things like that. So it's you got your work cut out for you for sure.
Yeah.
Anything else going on, man? Otherwise, I know you got to jump off soon, so I can let you get to that. But any questions you got for me with regards to, I don't know, like a person who actually uses your app and whatnot?
I'd love to hear. I know you kind of finished off season 1 of your Value for Value podcast. I mean, personally, I still think that's one of the best resources for podcasters to learn about value for value. So I'm constantly sending people there. I would love to, and I totally get why you've kind of like left it there and closed it off, because it's kind of like, it went through all of the introductory points around it, and it kind of culminated in your interview with Adam, which was really cool. Also, very regularly point people to that as well. I'd love to get your thoughts on where do you think podcasting 2.0 and specifically value for value with the Lightning payments would need to get to for you to decide, okay, things have progressed here. We've taken it to another level. I need to revisit this and do a season 2. Like, what do you think would make you think that?
Yeah, honestly, like it probably wouldn't be too much, because one of the things with that was, like, I was always planning for that one to be a testing podcast. Like, that was always going to be the first time I tried out chapter art, and I don't think I ever got around to the transcript, creating transcripts of it, but that was the first feed that I tried moving over between podcasting hosts, which is a pain in the ass for sure. Like, everything broke after I did that. So one thing I have been planning to do is use Casterpod, which is sort of, the open source hosting way of you doing it yourself. And I've sort of like gained enough knowledge that I think I'm like, just on the cusp of like, I don't need to learn coding to be able to do that. I can set up, a server somewhere, like a small server or something, relatively cheap, and I can play around with it myself. So if that, and that's like a goal actually I'm looking to do next month. So if that's the case, I'd move the podcast over, and then I would probably be like, all right, if I'm going to test out some live things like the live tag or things like that, I would probably be like, all right, well, Buzzsprout's probably going to take ages there'll be at least a lag time. So maybe I can test out those things on there. So I would probably do some more episodes, especially for that one. I think like the live tag, just to try that out. And so that's for those just listening, is doing a live episode and the podcast, like your live voice appearing in the Fountain app, for example, and it being sort of like almost like a YouTube live stream, but without the video, or a way to do that essentially. So I saw your Boostergram come through in the actual day, today or yesterday. So I do appreciate that, and sending people through as well. And it's in the sort of semi plans. So I've got so many things that I want to do.
Nice. Yeah. I think it's a great example though, that, a podcast doesn't have to be continuous. It can just be
for sure.
a season. It can just have one goal, which is to kind of just capture something that's happening in the moment and be a reference point. I think because that will live on as a reference point. I mean, it's not gonna get old, because the principles of value for value that you talk about are going to be there forever. Essentially, the principles of how do you connect with your listener? How do you ask for value in return? So I think it's really cool.
Yeah. That's a good point. I've never, because with the mere mortals, it's always just been like, I'm just going to keep doing this, sort of no matter what. I guess like the book reviews I did in Spanish, they sort of had an end point where it was just getting too much. I was doing like 8 videos a week and editing all those and whatnot. I was just like, all right, I got to take a step back. So that's a good point. Actually, I never really thought about that. Awesome. Thanks for joining me again, Oscar. It's cool to get like the latest goss and what's happening in the Bitcoin and Fountain world. What's the best way for people to get Fountain, join it, and join in the community and whatnot?
Thanks so much for having me on again, Kyrin. Really appreciate it. You can check out Fountain at fountain.fm. We're live on iOS and Android, so you can download the app, check us out, listen to a podcast, and try sending a boost message if you haven't already. And then if you have any feedback about the app, you can send me an email, oscar@fountain.fm, or you can message me on Twitter as well. So hope people check out the app.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Thanks so much for joining, and give this a little boost if you're on the app itself.